I'll tell you, Michael, it's a tribute to their patience.
Right.
That they're still working with me after 3 years, 4 years, maybe. I know when we're in meetings all the time, I'm constantly talking too fast.
Hey, it's okay. Remember, IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations is what Star Trek is about. And that's what we're doing tonight. We are welcome to another episode of Continuing Conversations. I'm Michael Dismuke, freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures, in addition to being a lead writer on Captain's Log solo RPG and also a fiction writer. Check me out at michaeldismuke.com to see all the work I'm working on and things that are coming up that are exciting. And of course, this would not be a show unless I had my partner in crime with us today, Jim Johnson.
Hey, everybody, Jim Johnson. I am the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log solo RPG, both published by Modiphius Entertainment below these many years, plus a bunch of other stuff that we're working on that'll be out in the coming months and years that I'm sure you'll hear more about. I am also a fiction writer. You can find me at scribeineti.com. That's SCRIBEINETI.com. At some point, I'll update that website. We'll get there. But for now, I don't want to fall too far behind Michael because he's already so far ahead on the website, but I'll get there eventually. But we are here to talk about Star Trek Adventures, and specifically we're here to talk about the artwork, which I'm super excited about. Finally, after long last, we've been able to get 2 fantastic guests on our show for tonight, and I'm super excited. I'm super excited. In fact, I'm so excited I'm trying to control myself because I talk too fast a lot of times, and they'll both admit, I mean, they will probably be too gracious to admit it. But
I tell people at my work, Jim, who have that habit, focus on the last consonant of every word and it will slow you down.
Then I'll be thinking too much. We don't want to go that slow. We'll be here all night. But without more ado, I want to introduce the art director for Star Trek Adventures, the latter end of first edition and all of second edition, Ariel Orea, and also, you know, it just didn't dawn on me. You are partners, spouses. Okay, and Aurea Freniere, fantastic artist in her own right. I'm hoping I get your pronouns right too.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
You're he, him? Cool. Want to make sure I get it right. So Ariel has been the art director for Star Trek Adventures for a few years now, and Aurea has been an artist with us. I mean, I'm sure she's been an artist for a long time. But please introduce yourselves, and then, as per our tradition here, tell us what your favorite Star Trek character is. Or, I'm sorry, your favorite Star Trek captain. Although, you know, if it's a character and it's not a captain, that's fine. And then also your favorite Star Trek series, whichever one of you wants to go first.
Hello, thank you for having us. My name is Aurea Freniere. I'm an artist. I'm also a writer. And currently I'm working as an illustrator and for romance novels and for Modiphius, in this case, for RPG games. And I'm so excited to be here. My favorite, I'm also a comic artist. My favorite character would be obviously Aurea. I really love her in all the seasons and all the series. And so far, like, my favorite series in Star Trek is Strange New Worlds. I really like it. It's just different because for other series, I think that Star Trek lacked the budget to be this very I'm not gonna use the word cinematic, but the special effects were like kind of like not so good. But Strange New Worlds, I think that it's just there. I love it. I really love it. I love the plots, the argument. I love the captain. So yeah, I watch it for the plot.
Watch out, Ariel. Did you hear how she said that?
So you go.
Well, my name is Ariel Orea. I am a director in Modiphius. I also animator, movie animator, and comic artist. I work for many years as animation until I had the opportunity to work with Modiphius. My favorite character is Spock. All my life was Spock. But if I need to choose a captain, I think it's Catherine Janeway. To me,
Yes.
it's best captain ever. And the TV series, well, I think the best TV series, I am a classic. I always like the original series.
Very
And that's
cool. Well, you won my heart. I know before we started this, I showed you my picture with Kate Mulgrew. And so, yeah. So thank you, Ariel, for that. Validating my favorite captain.
There is a certain charm to the original series. I have to tell you, my partner and I, we watched a Strange New Worlds episode the other night. It's the one where it's in the second season. It's the one where Uhura is hearing the alien species in the nebula, and is giving her the visions of the of dead characters, trying to explain that they're hurting them. And my partner was like, "This reminds me of the Horta episode, Devil in the Dark," and we were like, "Well, okay, we need to go watch that now." So then we went back and we watched the original series episode with the Horta, and it was so clear that it was a stuntman in a under a blanket, right, crawling on the floor, but it just had a certain charm to it that just that hasn't been matched. And the relationship between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, like that part, that the personalities blended so well together. I'm not sure there's another Star Trek series that has done quite that well with the interactions of the characters like that. But so I really appreciate that you're a big fan of the original series. And I wanted to ask you though, because you said you're a big fan of Spock. Is there a particular version of Spock that you gravitate more toward? Because we've got what, Leonard Nimoy, Ethan Peck, and shoot, I just used Zachary Quinto on the three movies. Is there one of those that you prefer more than another?
well, yeah. I don't know. I like too much, of course, Leonard Nimoy.
Mhm.
And second is Tuvok.
Nice.
I always like Tuvok, but and at the end, I feel that Tuvok he is not Spock, but it's like Spock. It's very similar to him. But
Mhm.
Nimoy, to me, I was raised with Spock in the TV screen, and always was Nimoy.
Yeah, nice. Is that anchovy right behind you?
No, this is the new one. We have another one. She's olive, aceituna.
For those listening on the podcast, they're pointing at their cat, which is wreaking havoc in the background of their house.
Yes, I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a tiny kitten. So she's like she wants all our attention now.
Does she like to eat plants?
No, she doesn't. It's just like she's just mesmerized. I have violets right behind me. I love plants. I love plants. And I had recently my violets bloomed, and she's so attracted to the flowers. And I was like, please don't eat them. Please do not, because
nice.
when I first adopted Anchovy, the Ancho, our first cat, the older one, I remember I had all my pots, with the violets, and he just ate them all the flowers were gone in just like a second. So, but so far she's not eating the plants. So
Okay, good.
At least you know they're edible if you ever need food.
Oh well, yeah. Cats love to eat plants, but I never knew that they would be enticed by the flowers. But actually, apparently they do. So yeah, so far she's not eating them. So.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because I saw her rooting around in the plants right behind you, and my one of my cats, she's 16. Her name's Viola. Viola loves to eat plants. She'll eat anything green, and my partner is frustrated by that because my partner loves to have flowers in the house as well, and Viola will just chew the leaves, and then of course cats after they chew up the leaves they hork them up, and then there's little spots to clean up. But so we've had to resort to Lego flowers in the house. Takes the real flowers to her office, and we have a little garden outside that we're trying to plant. So anyway, well, this is amazing. Like, even just in that introduction, I've learned more about you than I've known in the last 3 years. So I think when I looked at your either your art stations or your websites, or I don't remember exactly what I was looking at. I remember that both of you had done comic book work, but I didn't remember the specifics. And then Ariel, I don't think I realized that you were an illustrator. So, gosh, I know we're here to talk about Star Trek, but I really want to just hear about you all. And just tell us a little bit, Aurea, maybe you could start off just like comic books, like what got you into, I mean, I guess what got you into artwork in the first place, and then what gravitated you toward comic books?
Well, my parents really loved comic books. I mean, I had growing up, I know that most of the comic book creators, they always like, oh, my parents forbade me from reading comic books. It was not my case. My parents loved to read comic books. I grew up with Garfield, with Peanuts, with Calvin and Hobbes. I really love that. And I grew up with European comics, with Asterix and Obelix, with Manara, Milo Manara, Liberatore, this other that Moebius,
Enki Bilal.
Enki Bilal. There were a lot of comics that I was not supposed to be reading, but nevertheless, because it had pictures, I was drawn to them. And then many, many years later, when it's worth noting that regardless, here in Mexico, we had a very strong industry during the 80s. So from the 60s to the 80s, we have a very strong industry to a point where you actually, comics were adapted to the TV because many, many people read comics here. There were radio shows and everything based on comics. So we had like a strong industry, comic based. Regardless, obviously, I read Marvel. I love the X-Men. I love the X-Men. So when manga and anime hit during the 90s, I remember that it just blew my mind. It was totally different from what I've read so far. I remember watching this movie, Akira, from Katsuhiro Otomo, and it blew my absolute mind. I remember that I just wanted to do two things: become an animator, which eventually I did. I worked in animation many, many years, although I was not in, I started like as an animator, and then I just switched to background artist. I am a background artist. I've been a background artist for many, many years. And I remember that then when I discovered manga and anime, I just wanted to be a comic artist. It was like just like a calling, right? And when I started, when I was 19, I started working in editorials. I started not drawing comics because I was not ready. I was really green, And I'm a self-taught artist. I never went to art school. However, because also my parents died when I was very young, so I had to make hard decisions. And I had to grow up very fast, and so I decided I would just go to college, and I started to be I started to be a writer. I was just telling Michael that I started to be a writer because I wanted to be a novelist, because art was not something that I could pursue because it was very expensive. I didn't have any parents, and I had to support myself. So I started working as a comic book writer. So I started working as a comic book writer, and I started working in magazines. We call it here entertainment journalist. That's what we call it when you dedicate yourself to write articles about anime and manga. No, so I started just because I knew I read a lot of manga and I watched a lot of anime. So a friend of mine who was at the editorial, he told me, "You know a lot about these things. Wouldn't you like to write articles?" And I was like, "Perfect, because I need the money." So I started working, and little by little, people started to notice that I'll also, love to draw. And eventually, while I was in college, I had a friend who saw the drawings that I made, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, like, "Because I wanted to be a writer. Why don't you go to this animation studio? I work there, and I think there's a place for you. Why don't you?" They have tryouts. Why don't you go and give it a go? And I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. The money was good. And I remember that, well, it was destiny. I always have said that, because that's where I met Ariel. So he was a lead animator.
It turns into a love story.
Yeah, I met Ariel there, and obviously, I went to the tryout, and I was selected. and I started working in animation. And eventually, I remember I left college. I was a dropout, a college dropout for a while, and then when my economic, status was more stable, I returned. I returned, and I just enrolled again, and I got my degree, my master's, my everything, until I finished everything. But up to this day, I mean, I'm 25 years in, working as an artist. I've worked in television, I worked in animation, I worked in advertising, and as a writer, I've worked in advertising and in publishing, and you name it.
Yeah, it sounds similar. We had a show not too long ago about with some different writers on, like Dayton Ward or Matt Forbeck, and they were saying that when you really want to be a writer, in your case an artist, you take work where you can get it until you build your portfolio up. And it really you did a lot of hard work to get where you're at, which is really impressive. Yeah.
I think that the main key with being an artist in general, of course, there's just a component of luck. You have to be like somehow lucky, and you have to be there in the right place and at the right time. But however, I've known it's not about if you are the best writer or if you are the best artist. It's how hard you work for it, because in the end, it's not the most talented people that are going to get the jobs or the gigs. It's the ones that deliver on time, that have work ethics. And that's something that if you don't learn that early on, you're not going to get very far.
Profesional.
Yeah, you have to become a professional, right? That's just the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Michael, we talked about that a lot on this show, with mostly on the writer side, but it absolutely holds true for artists as well, right? I mean, I know we've had plenty of experiences with artists who just aren't able to deliver what we need, right? Or what's asked of them, and you just have to say, oh, okay, well, we'll move on to the next one. And we do it all the time with writers. I mean, not we, but like in my experience, we've done that with writers, and I had to learn that too, right? And early in my freelance writing career, I was like, oh yeah, if I don't hit my deadlines and I don't deliver what they're asking for, I'm not going to get more work. So that's a tough lesson to learn, especially when you're a dumb kid coming out of college, or not even out of college yet, and you're like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky, right, you get a mentor or two who can kind of help you along the way. But if you don't, then you just have to just keep at it and work hard and hit your marks, right?
Yeah, I remember the very first job that I got was I was sitting on a bench, like outside of the editor's office, because I went with a friend because he was going to deliver something. He was a comic artist. I was not a comic artist back then. I had the inspirations, but I didn't have the skill yet. But he knew that I wanted to write comics, that I wanted to be a writer, and I remember that the editor in chief, he came to me and he was like, what are you doing, little creature? But he called everyone creatures. And I was like, it's a term of endearment here in Mexico. And I was like, nothing. I just I'm just here, making some company. And he was like, no. She's a writer and she knows how to write. And I remember that I just went wide eyed. And he was like, so you write comics? And I was like, yes, I write comics. Well, bring me a script next week and then you'll have a job. And I remember that I was like, shaking in my boots because I was very insecure. I have never done anything like that. But, I took a chance. I wrote the script and I delivered it earlier, I remember. And I got the job at 19. And that's how I started working,
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing those stories, partly because of you did you put the work in and you got it done, but also that someone gave you that opportunity, right? Like to have somebody say, okay, I'm gonna, not that they were testing you necessarily, right? I mean, it was a test kind of, but just to say, yeah, if you can bring me a script next week, you're hired. right? I mean, that's to be able to be in a position like that to give people opportunities. I mean, that's just such a great place to be because you see it from the other way, and you can only assume maybe they were paying it forward, right? Maybe they had been given opportunities in their life and they were trying to pass it on to you. So,
Yes.
no, that's awesome. I love that. That's such a great story. I'm so excited to be doing this conversation. Ariel, why don't we switch to you a little bit here and just bring us up to where I guess to where you and Aurea met, and then we can continue on from there.
¿Cuándo nos conocimos?
No, o sea, te está preguntando cómo empezaste tú hasta el punto donde nos conocimos.
Well, I started when I had 7 years old, and no, my first job was in an animation studio, and I was 18 years old. Before that, I always want to be. It's not I was looking for be a comic artist. I always was looking for tell a story. So could be animation, could be comic, but I always need that to tell a story. And so I started to work in a comic with with some friends. And someday, one of them gave me the invitation for a new studio that they are hiring people for doing animation, and I start to work on them in that place because ¿cómo se diría? Bueno, pues fui a la entrevista.
He went to the interview.
Y ellos vieron mi portafolio y les gustó lo que tenía y me dijeron que iba a estar en práctica.
They reviewed a portfolio and they told him that he would be on a tryout, right? On a period of a test, and they would decide after that they would hire him or not.
So, well, I think, hey, they're going to show me how to do animation. No, they give me a folder, Foster. I don't know.
Walter Foster.
Walter Foster, do you know if you know it? Of animation, and then you go. Ponte a practicar y en una semana te revisamos y ya estás listo.
Well, they just told him, you got to practice this, what is inside of the Walter Foster, and in a week we'll see how much you've improved and if we can actually do something with you.
So that he could match the style of the animation, correct?
Yeah, but he was expecting to be taught how to animate, and that didn't happen. So
just so that I'm clear in understanding the animation you were doing, was it like using computers to animate, or was it like actually hand drawing?
No, that was 1996.
Okay, so this is details one after another.
Traditional animation. That means 24 drawings per second.
Oh wow!
So that was the best that I can learn, because when you get this skill to do 24 drawings for 1 second, you start to drawing very fast.
Yes,
that's amazing.
And that's why when I do an illustration is, when do you want the illustration? You get it in 1 day or 2.
That's incredible. Now, you were telling me before, though, you didn't know or realize early as a young man that your father was an artist too, right? I thought that was so fascinating. Can you tell me again about that?
Yeah, well, my father was a teacher on Arts Academy here in Mexico, the Academy of San Carlos. This is an important Academy of Arts. But he never told me that he was a teacher from this academy. And he was a teacher of sculpture, watercolor, oil. But when I was born, and my brothers, he started working other job because now he had family. So you are an artist, you are not going to...
You're not going to have money, no?
Have money for your whole family. So he never told me that he was a teacher until he was noticed that I insist in doing drawings and not my homework. No.
Yeah, he would rather paint and draw instead of working on his homework. Right.
No, yes. And then he's when he tell me, well, do you want to do this? Okay. this is wrong. And start to teach me what he knows.
Mhm.
So it's basically, I was saying, it's basically baked into your DNA and you didn't even know it, to be such a prolific artist, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful story. That's really nice.
Yeah, everybody was an artist in my home. My mother also was a artist. She was, well, she was la alumna de mi padre.
He's telling that his parents met at the National Academy of Arts, so she was his student, and then they met and they fell in love and then started dating. Yes.
Beautiful. Very nice.
I love it. Oh, so this is so great. I could just talk to you to all night just listening about all the great history and stories. So I think why don't we switch gears a little bit into Star Trek Adventures? So Ariel, refresh my memory. You came into Modiphius around 2019, 2020, or was it a little bit later?
21. It was with Shackleton.
Yeah.
We are finished Shackleton, and half of the way of Shackleton, I come to Modiphius.
Yeah, you worked. I remember you worked a little bit with the previous art director, and some of the work on Shackleton, and that was during the pandemic, wasn't it? Or later into the pandemic, and then after Shackleton, you took over full time on Star Trek, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we started with like a freelance art director, and then I switched to
full time.
The full time, right? And I remember somewhere in the early part of your time with us or with Modiphius, you did some art as well, because I know you did some of the cutouts in the discovery book, and then I think Modiphius suggested their internal practices, for probably good reasons, to have art directors not doing their own art on the books, just to manage the approvals and everything else. But so then you focused full time on the art direction for the line, and I mean, I've told you ad infinitum, and I'll keep telling you, and the fans are telling you. And I don't know if you spend a lot of time on social media, but I do my best to share the stories from people online who love the artwork, and they have seen a very clear progression of the artwork from Shackleton through the handful of books we did together on first edition, and then especially into second edition. And I'm gonna, if I can find the share button, Michael, oh, there it is. I'm going to share my screen here and pull up the cover for the second edition core book, because this was such a leap forward. I mean, the artwork in first edition was great, but we knew we had an opportunity with second edition to really go somewhere else with it. And Ariel, I know when I talked about that with you, you were all on board, and you emphasized how important it was to go to go on to the next level. But just from your perspective, like what were you thinking when I guess myself and Modiphius in general said, hey, we want to do second edition, we want to advance the artwork? Like what did that mean to you, and what kind of thought processes did you put into it to make it happen?
Bueno, pues
Tú dime, yo te voy traduciendo.
pues lo más importante para mí fue tener los artistas adecuados para hacer todo esto.
The most important part for him was to get the right artist to get the art that he envisioned. That was the first priority for him.
Mm-hmm.
Por ejemplo, para mí Star Trek lo que envuelve demasiado, más allá de la ciencia ficción y de las naves espaciales y todo eso, es una cuestión de comunidad.
Okay,
de variedad.
He says that beyond, the sci-fi aspect of Star Trek, the spaceships and everything, all the ornaments, the first and the most important part of Star Trek for him is the community part, right? So he wanted to actually, how do you say, put that into the art. I'm sorry.
No, entonces, para mí lo más importante fue buscar artistas que tuvieran eso, que pudieran transmitir eso. Por ejemplo, la portada es de Paolo Puglioni. Es alguien que puede retratar muy bien los personajes.
Okay. Yeah, so in order to do that, he had to get the artist that would be able to convey those messages. For example, the cover was made by Paolo Puglioni, who is really good, at portraying real people, like and good faces and good humans, which is not really an easy task to do. Yeah, I may add as an artist, right?
Did he already know these people, or was he scouting them in some other fashion? How did you select your artists?
Well, I need to do a search of artists. I do a search for artists every week because you never know. You need more artists or not. And you put in some kind of trial the artwork of this artist. So I always ask for one piece of art. And I saw what the potential of this artist is. So if he's working, and it's not just the style, it's like tú dijiste antes, ¿no?
Mhm.
Es una cuestión de profesionalismo, ¿verdad?
Yeah, it's not only the style of the artist, it's the disposition and the work ethics, etc. Right?
No, entonces, and that's why I choose this artist Puglioni. He already worked for us in, I think, was the Shackleton book, but he, por alguna razón, él estuvo, ¿te acuerdas que no estuvo presente en el libro? Que no
Disponible.
disponible.
Yeah, he was not available before, so he had to wait until he was available, right?
Pero por bastantes libros, entonces ya es cuando lo volvimos a llamar.
He mentions that he sought him out for several books and he was not available. So finally,
wow, must be nice to be him.
Yeah. So finally, and I remember this because sometimes I help Ariel with translations, and I remember this very clearly, that Puglioni finally wrote back and he said, I'm ready to take the commissions that you want. So yeah.
Well, then we got lucky then, because Paolo's done a lot of work for us since then, right? And he's managed to do 2 or 3 pieces per book for a while now. So I'm glad that, and I'm sure that a big part of that is the working relationship that you have with him, because that's, I mean, what you were saying about personalities and the disposition and how well do they work with you and how well do they take notes and how well do they, accept constructive criticism are so important. I mean, not just clearly for artists, but for writers too. And Aurea, I know you can speak to that, right? Like if your managing editor or whatever gives you notes and you don't like them and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to make that change. Well, then you're just hurting yourself, because it's going to be harder they're going to think you just can't work with them, right? But no, that's really interesting.
Can I ask a question about the art you have up? Because for those are listening on the podcast right now, Jim is displaying the cover to Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, the second edition core rulebook cover. And I kind of want to know about how the art brief for this developed. Jim, did you write the art brief? Does Ariel write the art brief on something like this? And I would like to know the history about that.
Yeah, just real quick, Ariel usually takes the first crack on the vast majority of the art briefs. Once in a while, I'll have a specific idea for a piece of art, and I'll bang something together, and then I'll leave him to do the fine work on it. For the cover, though, I think we talked together for a while, and we knew that second edition we wanted to be really inspired by what was happening on Strange New Worlds, and Strange New Worlds, like Paramount's publicity department, has some fantastic promo images and stuff, and so we looked at that. We put that on our mood board, such as it was, and
there's
we went
there's a full story here too. Like you have to open up the entire book and look at the back cover with the front cover, because the back cover continues the story, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't have that art handy, I don't want to fumble around for it. But yeah, anybody out there who's either picked up the core books, just open up the covers, or if you have the game toolkit, and this is not a plug, I'm just telling you where the art is. The poster map that's in the game toolkit has this full art on one side and the map on the other side, so you can see the whole story laid out. But I'll stop there. Ariel, writing this art brief, and this is a piece of the whole art thing that even I don't know everything about. I get pieces of it from you secondhand, but like, so you and I work together, right? We hash out the art brief, and then what happens next, right? Like share with us, like where you reach out to the artist, obviously, and then like how many iterations of sketches did you and Paolo work on together on this? I'll stop talking, I promise.
No, don't worry. Well, usually I send the brief and I explain a little more in the email to the artist. In this case, for example, is what I mentioned before. Strange New World start to use more colorful pictures in his TV series, and that's give us the opportunity to bring that kind of colors on a Star Trek product. So I explained that to Paolo, and after that he started to send sketches. Sorry. Algunos al principio son demasiado sin elaborar tanto. Depende del artista.
Well, sometimes they send sketches that are not as elaborate, but it all depends on the artist, They're like too rough.
Sí, hay quienes te pueden mandar algo totalmente a lápiz y que tienes que adivinar un poco, y hay otros que ya lo mandan un poco más avanzados, ¿no?
There are some artists that actually send like rough, like you can actually have to squint a little bit to understand it, but some others actually send a full-fledged, artwork almost ready to go to the final stage. It all depends on the artist.
Pero afortunadamente Puglioni es un artista que trabaja muy limpio, siempre es muy directo con lo que va a poner en la final product.
Okay, Puglioni he's saying that he's a very clean and straight to the point artist, so he's very eloquent graphically, so he always knows what he's delivering. So that's a great, advantage to have in an artist.
Got it.
Y detallitos de, bueno, sabes que la perspectiva hay que acomodarla aquí, ¿te acuerdas?
Okay.
Acá,
yeah. So right about then he starts giving notes. Like you need to work in the perspective of, we want this figure, a little bit bigger, or that's where the art director comes in, with his notes, right?
So then, with the notes, it's just constant iterations until you're happy with it, and then you send it over to me, and then we go back and forth a little bit with some details. Now this piece of art, I remember actually I needed you to remind me. We had Rodrigo Gonzalez Toledo did the cut for these characters for the quick start. I think we did those pieces. We did the cutouts before we did this cover, right? So were you able to provide Pugliani, Paolo with the cutouts to say these are the characters we want to have on the cover?
Yeah, they come in the briefs. Yes.
Did that help, or was that a hindrance?
No, of course. Helps a lot.
Okay. And then I remember one of the drafts of this cover didn't have everybody in the different uniforms, right? I think they were all in Strange New Worlds uniforms. And then we talked to the brand team, and the conversation came out that we wanted to have a stronger representation of the entire franchise on the cover. And that's where we decided, okay, why don't we put the different iconic characters into different uniforms all across the franchise? And then I looked at that and I was like, well, what's the story? Like, why is this? Why are we doing this? I mean, we know why we're doing it from a marketing perspective, to put all the different shows and movies on the cover. But where's the story, right? And that's why we added the Guardian of Forever. So those of you who are, if you're familiar with the cover, or you're familiar with the artwork, we put the Guardian of Forever on the back of the book, along with Carl tipping his hat, just to suggest maybe this cast of characters has been traveling through time and is going, and are all different uniforms and stuff, and now they're in this place together, having their story. And we'll leave it up to the viewer to decide what happened, right? I mean, that's the great thing to do, right? Is figure out, it's science fiction. Why is this happening? You go from there. And so I know we made some changes to the art to adjust the uniforms. Any other behind the scenes tidbits or interesting anecdotes that you want to share about this particular piece of art? And then we'll switch over to one of Aurea's pieces.
Añadir algo más sobre esta pieza.
No, yo creo que sobre esto todo se ha dicho todo.
Well, he says that I think that all what needs to be said has been said.
That's fair.
About,
Go ahead.
bueno, podría mencionar que cuántas veces tuvimos que agrandar el canvas, pero
That he would that you guys, well, between you would can discuss how many times they had to widen, the margins because that was wrong with the margins or something like that, right?
Yeah, because different. So sausage making, for those of you who aren't in the publishing industry, different factories have different margins for the size of the artwork that they need, and depending on how you print the book, you need different margins to fit just to fit the paper and stuff. And so I think we had initially thought we were going with one manufacturer, and then we ended up switching to another manufacturer late in the game, and that changed the margins. And there's some other things that happened that changed the margins. So we ended up having to reformat this thing a couple of times. And what that means, if I remember right, Ariel, is that created negative space in parts of it that had to be expanded by the artist. So we had to go back to the artist and say, hey, we need you to expand this, because we, at Modiphius, we don't use AI generative technologies. We don't, cut and paste or clone or anything. We actually, do the art. And so we had to go back to Paolo a couple of times. I remember that now. And then now that you reminded me.
I have a question about that then. Just I like learning about how it works, the process. If you have to do that, is that like a change order to the artist and you actually have to pay differently, or is that all covered in the initial contract?
It depends. Sometimes we're able, and I think part of this, Ariel and Aurea could probably attest, part of it probably depends on your relationship with the artist, and are they willing to do a little extra work on the, not to say on the side, but are they willing to go a little further for no additional cost, or is it enough labor intensive that they are going to charge more? Or do we say, what, we think this is going to take you more time and effort, we're going to give you more money? And I think I try to lean toward that one, because I'm a freelancer too. I respect their time, I respect their talent, and I don't want to ever take advantage of anybody. So as much as I can, if I can pay them more, I will. But hopefully, if we're managing a budget, right, we want to try to get it right the first time, so that we're not having to go back and go back and go back, right?
So another technical question then, because I know we are in the date, even though we are not using AI, we're using digital art, Photoshop, Illustrator. So would advice from Ariel and Aurea be that, for instance, I guess they're using layers for each element, so that if there is resizing, you can move the layers where you need them? Is that what you would advise a new artist to build?
Yeah, we always ask to send the file with the layers apart, because if in graphic design need to move some element like the title or something like that, you can move a little the characters or any element on the cover or file.
There you go, for new artists who are trying to get into the game. Learn that early. I used to do graphic design, so that's why I wanted to ask that question. If we do that.
Even a nobody, a layman like me who dabbled with Photoshop way back in the day, I learned pretty quick that if I didn't use layers, I was totally screwed, because I'd be making all these little changes over here on this little thing, and all of a sudden I'd turn that layer off and like, where'd all my changes go? What happened? Oh, I didn't do another layer. And then I had to. I don't know how much work I wasted, not knowing to do that. And that's why I'm not a graphic designer, because I don't have that skill set. All right. So this is, and Ariel, I don't know that I've thought to share it with you, but Modiphius has gone on to use this piece of art in a lot of their promo stuff, and especially at like conventions. They have a big like 10-foot poster that they use in the booth displays with this artwork on it. And I don't think I've been at a convention to see it in person, or was I at one? Shoot, I can't remember now. But I've seen pictures like at Gen Con. In fact, Michael, you were there, weren't you?
Not this piece of art. I saw some social media where people were standing in front of it, and it's kind of feels like you're on the Martian man's landscape with them, which is really nice. Yeah,
it looks amazing from the pictures that I've seen. If I can remember, I'll send you the pictures so you can just see and appreciate just how good this looks blown up, 100 times. I mean, like this is a 8.5 by 11 cover. Right? It's just a book, but when you take this artwork and you make it, 20 by 30, 20 meters by 30 meters or whatever ridiculous size those booth banners are, it's amazing how much detail pops out at you. And it's just there's so much intricacy here. And I know it's a testament to you and it's a testament to Paolo. But wow, this is such a great piece of art. And I think consistently we've been getting lots of fan feedback about how much they appreciate this art. And I don't think I've had a chance to tell anybody yet because I was waiting for confirmation. But I think the second edition core book just got on the short list of nominations for the Origins Awards for this year. So yeah, we won't know the winners until the summer, but I think it's on the short list, which is really exciting, right? It's really exciting for a second edition of a game to be on the list. You usually get one edition, one shot, and then you're done. But this one in there. So anyway, congratulations, great work as always. So let's switch gears a little bit here, Michael. I'm going to use your idea and see if I can find one of Aurea's pieces in here. Of course, she's in the credits. Oh, yeah, Lower Decks.
Background.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
it's the one that Michael's got.
I did several for Lower Decks, and for the second edition, I also did spread pages.
You did some of the pieces in the Lower Decks campaign guide, right?
Yeah, that's where I started in Modiphius because Ariel had the chance to work with animation style, so he had to call people who actually have worked in animation to do the stuff.
Right, and I mean, and that's a huge. I mean, we could do a whole episode just on Lower Decks, I think, because I remember the internal discussions we were having when we were doing the Lower Decks book was we wanted to we knew we had the permission to use screenshots from the show, but we also knew we wanted to use original art because we didn't think that the show, I mean, the show was only 2 or 3 seasons old by that point, so there wasn't a huge amount of art that we could pull from anyway. And we were like, well, if we can find, I think, I know Ariel, you and I talked about it. We were like, if we can find enough artists who can match the style, we can probably get it through approvals, right? And you did a great job finding like Berenice and Aurea and so a handful. I think there were a handful of others, but yeah.
How hard is that, Aurea, to match a style? Like, what's your process for doing that?
The issue here is that it's not an advantage that I have, it's just that I have the experience of animation. And in animation, it's not about you, it's about the movie. We have a saying in animation, at least in Latin American animation, like the star of the studio, it's the movie, So you have to work in as a team, to pull this big elephant through the jungle, which is, making an animated film. So you have to adapt, you have to you get early in the production, and you get this model sheets, and you get on cracking, to get the style down and to get it done as fast as you can and as accurate as you can. And this is something that in animation you have to do it, or else you cannot work in animation.
Did you get model sheets for Lower Decks in some form or fashion?
Not precisely. I have personally, since I'm the wife of the art director, so I was able, to Ariel show me some of the stuff that you guys had in the Paramount library, right? Because at the moment, I think if I remember correctly, Jim asked him to download some assets from the Paramount library, so I was able to really have a good look, at the designs. And then I was able to watch the series. I personally, before working on Lower Decks, I never seen or heard about the movie, the animation series, I'm sorry. And it was super fun. I really recommend it to you all. And so you get acquainted, visually with what they're expecting. And then you just have to have like a good reference and then match. I remember that I made cutouts, a lot of cutouts for the planets, for some characters. I did I think 2 illustrations for that, because like Jim mentioned, it was Ariel had to basically look for people who can actually match the style. No, and I'm not saying that I'm the only one who could have done it. I mean, but you need to have a person who has worked in animation who can actually do it fast and quick.
Yeah, it's
and
still an
accurate.
impressive. It's an impressive skill set. It's not. It's there's some people who can draw their own style, but being able to draw someone else's style is incredible. Yeah.
No, but in the end, I have to say this. Sometimes you think that the art director is just like a wall dressing, but it's not. It's is the orchestra, master who is behind coordinating all the artists. So every time that I had, like I don't know if this eye is just big enough or if this line is the right kind of line or whatever, he would tell me, you have to see this and you have to notice this and you have to be aware of this so that you won't include it in the drawing, because otherwise Paramount is going to reject it. So, and I remember that Ariel was pretty adamant, to get things right from the start, because he knew, because he has worked in animation, he has been an art director in animation, that if you don't get it right, I mean, if Paramount would have opened the files and said this is not lower decks, you have to go back to the drawing board and redo all the things, and that was his major fear.
Well, now
So
I got to ask. Jim had told a story about something in the past getting kicked back for something. Ariel, was there ever anything that was kicked back that you're like, oh, I didn't catch that? I'm just curious if that ever happened to you.
No, it's only with the cover, with the lower decks, but I think that was not my fault. Somebody moved a foot of a character in the cover, and when we saw the advertising in the Facebook, was the foot floating in the center of the cover, and I said, "Oh wow."
Hey, that's Lower Decks. It was Lower. That's the TV show. They do stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's funny. Very funny. I guess that's a nightmare, right? Like I know Jim freaks out over typos, but I'm sure in art, something like that is even more fearsome.
Well, it's just stressful, but because in the end, when you are getting commission, and that's something that new artists have to be aware of. When you get commission, it's not about you. It's about the client. It's what the client wants. He or she or they are hiring you to get. They're hiring you your time and your hand to do a drawing. It's not what you want to have in the end. I've received notes from many clients that I'm like, okay, you want that? I will do it. I mean, you're paying for it, and I'm not happy with it. But in the end, it's not my drawing. They're paying me to do a drawing. So and many artists, and that's the problem when, for example, Ariel is scouting artists, that he sometimes, some artists, they like the tinsels, and the fame of being an artist or having a portfolio, but they don't know how to work for hire. And that's just an issue that you have to learn to be tolerant. You have to be patient with the client, because sometimes when they commission you, the client doesn't know what he, she, or they want. They don't know. So you have to navigate on in between those weird holes, and get the work done, regardless.
Yeah. So I have a question, and it's totally okay if you don't want to answer this, but it's just I've never had an opportunity to talk to a couple that were actually doing the work, right? So just what's the experience as an art director and an artist working so closely? I mean, obviously you're co-located, right? Compared to like your art director is, halfway across the world and you're just talking via email or phone, versus having somebody right there next to you, being able, I mean, not to say that Ariel's a micromanager by any stretch of the imagination, but like how's the workflow work differently because you're right there together being able to make changes or make adjustments to it, versus, oh no, I've got to send an email and I got to wait a day or whatever. Any experiences there?
Para ti, como director de arte, yo digo después.
Well, I am, ¿cómo se diría? Estoy acostumbrado porque pues tenemos una relación de muchos años en el que trabajamos de esa manera.
Okay, that he says he's already accustomed, and it's great because he has worked with me on many different jobs, which is true. So because the working animation, animation is just such a small medium, such a small community. I meant to say, sorry. So he's accustomed to working with me.
Pero sí podría decir que cuando estaba trabajando en una oficina como director de arte, es más cómodo, de cierta manera fue más fácil para mí comprender al artista que estaba haciendo el trabajo cuando lo tenía a un lado que cuando estoy trabajando.
Okay. For him, he says that it's just better and more upfront, and he gets to understand the artist better of why he's doing the things that he's doing, or she, or they are doing, if he has them, right there. Otherwise, you have the artist, far away, and there's really no way of knowing of knowing more quickly why he's doing what he's doing, right?
So
And it's more easy to me explain.
To explain.
While you're there. But you have like 30, how many artists were involved, for instance, with the core rulebook? It looks like there's like 30 or 20 artists, maybe? You had to corral all of those people?
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, I think at least 15 or 16 artists that were doing new work, plus the either the reuse art we used or the stuff from CBS Studios. But I know that as much as I heard cats on editors and writers, Ariel's doing just as much on the artists, right? I mean, Ariel, how many artists did you have on the core book? Like 15, 16?
Oh, yeah. The problem is this is not the only book that I am working on. I have artists for Star Trek, artists for Fallout, artists for action. So no, I don't use always the same artists because they don't match with the titles. But for this book, I think was like 16, 17 artists.
That's
more or less.
huge. Yeah, that's a lot. Wow.
Yeah, and so you're doing art direction on this one and Octung and Fallout, plus whatever work you're doing outside of Modiphius, right? Because I know this isn't all you're doing, because you're creative, just like myself and Michael, and yeah, I'm sure you've got plenty of other irons in the fire, and there's other projects you're working on and stuff. So it's a lot of work. I mean, it's the gig life, right? Like we're always constantly working on something, right? Yes. So and I guess that's a good admonishment for freelancers out there too, is don't settle on one thing, right? Like be working on lots of other stuff, because you never know where your next job is going to come from, and all those little income trickles add up, hopefully, right? Like all those little bits and bobs that you're working on eventually come together. So I want to just show a couple other pieces of art here real quick. This is one of the great pieces that Aurea did for the core book, and I just love this because I remember this art brief, and I was like, if possible, let's sneak in some alien creatures into the asteroid field somewhere and make it subtle. I think that was about as far as I went with the art brief, and you did it. Like just down here in the corner, you got the beautiful Excelsior class ship out there in the asteroid field, and you get the little aliens right there down in the corner. And this is one of the pieces that I would love to get like a big, size to frame on my wall, but I just don't have enough wall space. It's mostly books.
I have to ask, Aurea, in your mind, what's the story behind the aliens? Give us that, because I sit there looking at it like, are they sentient? Are they not sentient? Like, what's your mind going?
I don't know. I think that I was never kind of a sci-fi girl. I think I've always defined myself more like a fantasy girl. But however, I think sci-fi as an artist is just a challenge. It's a visual challenge because you have to portray, things that just don't exist. So so when I got the brief, Ariel was like really adamant to get this landscape, vastness of the space and yada yada, and I was like, okay. So I started, like, honestly, I started with the background. I remember the background first. That's the first thing I did, and then when I was satisfied with the background, I just went on with the shape. I don't use 3D models. I just draw it from scratch. And then when it came to the creatures, I was like, well, what kind of creatures would be like wondering about, within an asteroid field. So I don't know how I came up with the fishes, because I remember that the first thing that I drew were like some aliens that were inside of the asteroids that were just speaking out or something. And Ariel, I remember that he was like, no, just think about some colorfulness. No, so it was like the space for me in the end is like the sea. Is this unknown area. So in the end, they kind of became like sort of fishes, like luminous fishes. I don't know how to explain it, but I wanted to do something like to contrast the way that the vastness of space, the exploration kind of, I think that it's very Star Trek thing, versus, the aliens that they're roaming in space and we don't know, maybe we don't know that they are there. I don't know if I explain myself. So
No,
I
it's
wanted to,
beautiful. I love the whole concept. I'm
yeah,
hoping, like what I'm hoping when I see the story, I'm hoping the ship doesn't pass them without finding them. Like
yeah, it's like,
I like I hope someone's looking out a window and says, "Wait a second, wait, stop the ship. There's something out there." I love that.
yes,
There's something on sensors. Wait a minute, we gotta go back. We gotta go back and look at it. Hang on.
Ariel has just mentioned, it's like seeing mermaids, in the sea. It was like that because I think that in the very real life, watching something in the sea, in the vastness of the sea is just, it's
No, like
just
when you see a whale pick a dolphin
yeah,
or porpoise, you're
yeah.
like, "What?" And
You don't
your eye
you-
catches it in the side.
so I wanted to really create that expectation on the people who were seeing the art. Have they seen these creatures, or did they just pass them by?
And if they pass them by, how sad, right? Like if they miss them, that's like kind of heartbreaking. Yeah, that's cool.
Absolutely. All right, so I know we're getting close on time here, so I want to be respectful of your time. Obviously, I switched over to the new technical manual because, of course, this episode will air after the pre-orders already come out, so people will have already seen this. This is not necessarily a spoiler, except for folks who haven't been following along on the blog posts and whatnot. Of course, you obviously, Ariel, you worked on this one, and Aurea, you were able to do some work. So I'm curious. Then you were saying you do everything, you do everything freehand. So when you had the opportunity to work on some of these different props, just maybe just talk about I mean the two of you together, talk about you, because I know the art briefs were fairly straightforward. I think it was just finding pictures of the props online and saying, okay, make a piece of art of this and then a piece of art of that. But just share a little bit about how some of these came together.
Well, prácticamente sufriste, ¿no?
Yeah.
Porque no era exactamente hacer lo que viene en la fotografía. ¿Te acuerdas que te mencionaba que tenías que rotarlos para que fuera algo diferente?
Yeah, the thing is that Ariel, that's what he's mentioned. And Ariel, when he handed me the brief, I've worked with props in animation. So he was like, you have this, you can do this. But however, his request was not to go like the exact photograph. He wanted something different, especially in the objects that we had a lot of pictures of. There was one, I think that's the Romulan, the one in the center, that was only one screen capture. So Ariel was a little bit afraid to rotate the object because we didn't want Paramount to reject it, because it had to be like to the letter, to every last little button, it has to be the same, because
you can lose information
yeah,
about the object.
Yeah, you can lose the information of the object. And I know personally, I was actually, I got the brief and I was like, yay, objects. And then because I thought it was going to be a pretty straight forward process because they're not humans, and anthropomorphic beings. And then I just started to get nervous because I said, like, I know for a fact, for example, I adore Lord of the Rings, and I know for a fact that how things look. And if they don't look the way they're supposed to look, I get angry, So I was like, oh my God, I don't want to have the Star Trek fans angry at me because I, messed up the tricorder, right? So I had this direction from Ariel that please rotate the actual the objects, but they have to look like objects, because they have to look 3D kind of thing, and Paramount has to like the objects because they know what their product looks like. So it was a little bit stressful for me, I have to say.
That's awesome. Oh man, I love it. So last question for the two of you. I can stop sharing my screen here, and we'll just get the screen back here. Where's my stop sharing screen button? There it is. All right. And we'll close all the tabs. Apologies for the nitty gritty there. So my last question for the two of you, outside of Star Trek, outside of Modiphius, just, you two out in the big world, if there was a dream project that you could work on for whether it's animation, comic books, whatever your sweet spot is with your preferred skill set, each of you, what would be your dream project?
Uf, ¿qué te gustaría hacerte?
¿A ti cuál te diría?
Well, if I could, I mean, I have to. I mean, I would love to be like an independent comic artist, to writing my own stories and drawing them. But if I had to work in a franchise, I would love absolutely love to work in love Lord of the Rings. I mean, I love it. I mean, I'm such a Lord of the Ring fans, and I would go crazy if I, would make anything. Yeah. Work on anything. I mean, that's what I meant.
I'll have to. Well, I'll wait. I'll save it for another time because I really want to pick your brain now about the War of the Rohirrim and get your take on what you thought of it. But I think that'll have to be another conversation for another day. Ariel, how about you? What would be your dream project?
It's exactly the same dream.
Really?
Yeah, I am as. Of course, if I have the time, because I don't have the time to do my own comic book, but I need to work. But if I need to choose a franchise, it's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I love.
We are really.
Yeah, we're such huge fans.
Have you both been to New Zealand and seen any? Have you gone yet?
No. I have to say no.
Bucket list, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As I say, I have to
work. Yeah, that would be lovely, actually. But yeah, I would love it. Yeah, the last movie, the War of the Rohirrim movie, was like such a great movie. I loved it. Really loved it.
How did I just miss that? Both of you are huge Lord of the Rings fans as well. I mean, come on.
I love it. It's because you didn't follow me on Twitter, Jen. But
I mentioned once in the past.
Maybe I may have missed it, but yeah, I got off Twitter. I think right around the election, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm on Blue Sky, but I couldn't do Twitter anymore. So I'll need to go on just for you, just so I can follow your stuff.
No. I have to say I'm not on Twitter anymore.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No. But I was, on Twitter before I migrated to Blue Sky, and I had a lot. I mean, I posted drawings and fan fiction and what have you. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, both of you have great ArtStation pages. I'll make sure to link in our blog. I'll make sure to put links to your ArtStation pages.
And on the YouTube channel, on the YouTube video, we'll put the links.
Yeah, because people, if they want to check out your outside of Star Trek, the variety of work you both produce is really amazing. Really.
Yeah, I have to say I'm more like an Instagram girl. I don't have a lot of work on ArtStation, but on Instagram you can find me more. I'm more active there. So
make sure to send me that link after. Email me your preferred link so we make sure to post everything that you want us to post.
I mean, I have work in ArtStation, but I have to say that I don't keep it as updated as I would like on Instagram, for example. Yeah.
Okay. And I apologize. I have to ask you one more question, only because it came up.
Don't worry.
Both of your answers, you said the same thing. So you both, like, all things being equal, if we had, if money was not a concern for us, we'd all be working on our passion projects. So you both want to be working on your own writing and doing the art on your own comic books. Would that be a comic book that you would work on together, or do you have your own separate things that you want to be working on?
Separate, yeah.
Separate, really? Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, I am more like horror comic, and she's more
like a fantasy story kind of thing. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, of course.
And maybe it's just that we usually, I don't know, life has put us in this path, but we have worked together for so many years, in so many projects, publicity, movies, etc. That maybe you say, like, maybe we should have our alone time, like you over there and you over here, right? But in any case, when we are working in our personal projects, we are next to each other. So, we had a lot of feedback and we help each other a lot, so it's great. I mean, I feel very blessed to be able to have a person right next to me that believes in the same things that I do and actually does the same thing that I do. It's just great.
That is so nice. That's
Oh,
so comfortable. That's so nice.
So good. So good. Oh, I could sit here all night asking you questions, even down into the weeds about art, but I promise I'll stop. So, because I know we've been over at this for over.
No, don't worry, Jim. I mean, you can ask us all the questions that you want. I mean, we have the time. So don't worry.
We'll have you on again. I think knowing what books are coming and knowing what artwork is in those books, I think sometime this summer maybe we'll do another episode and we'll have a little bit more of a chat about some of that artwork, and then we'll go into more about your processes and your preferred mediums and some other stuff like that. So
yeah, next time, what I would really love too is for both of you to pick your favorite pieces of artwork from the books and talk to us about the evolution. I know sometimes on the blog Continuing Missions, which is the blog where Jim found me because I was writing all kinds of stuff about Star Trek Adventures. I posted the art briefs after they're published. I post the actual art briefs because I wrote a couple art briefs, and people are like, "We love this background information." So maybe next time we'll have you each bring like 3 or 4 pieces and tell the stories to them. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, in fact, maybe we could refine that a little bit and just say maybe some of 3 or 4 pieces of your own stuff. Because my first thought that we would do, like, here's the art brief, here's some sketches, and then here's the final. But I felt uncomfortable doing that with an artist that wasn't on the show with us. Like, I wouldn't want to show off, Paolo's sketches or Rodrigo's sketches, or that seems disrespectful to them, right? But maybe if, like, Ariel, if you shared some of your, like, here's an art brief I worked on, here's the sketches I had, here's the final that came out, and then we could do that with you as well.
That'd be fun.
That would be cool, I think.
And then we get to riff off the stories they had in their mind, which is super cool. We do a lot of riffing, so that would be wonderful.
Yeah, this is cool. All right, so we'll jump into gratitude then, and then we'll call it a night. So, Michael, why don't you kick us off, and then we'll go to you two, and then we'll wrap it up with me.
Well, again, after talking about art all night, I have to tell people, please open up the front pages of all the different books that get published and whatever your favorite RPG is or comic book, and don't skip the artists. I actually, even at the end of movies like Marvel movies, there's so many artist lists that I think it's respectful to sit there. And I'm like, well, let me scan the names. Maybe I'll see someone I know. So please, I'm going to say thank you to all the artists who are involved. And the way we show our thank you is by looking at their names, looking them up on ArtStation. And I know, I've had the privilege of referring other artists to other places, like, oh, look at their style, in my other line of work, where I do production at my company. And I think if you really like somebody, learn them and talk about them somewhere, mention them so that they get more opportunities. So thank you, Ariel and Aurea, for coming on, and love your local artist.
All right, Aurea, your gratitude.
Oh well, I don't know. I think that it's just I'm grateful for so many things right now, but I'm just, as an artist, having the thing with AI, I'm very grateful to have a job right now, to be able to work, for all the people that have supported me and Ariel, and I have to say, I've always, and I have to take this. I want to take this opportunity to say, like, I'm a huge RPG player. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love role playing games. I love. Yeah, I wanted to start a Star Trek game for that table that I have here. So it was just super cool to be able to be part of something that I love, and I'm super grateful that regardless of the hardships that I've been through or the things that have happened, I get to do what I do. I'm very grateful with life, for having this chance, to do what I love. Yeah.
Good.
And to do it next to a person that I love also.
Yeah. And remember, if you love Dungeons and Dragons, you can totally port that into Star Trek. You can write stories
course, yeah.
our Dungeons and Dragons level. So you could bring the two together.
Yeah, and I mentioned Dungeons and Dragons as in a general name, like saying Kindle when you actually mean an e-reader, because I actually love role playing games. I really love them. I think it's just a refuge for many of us. It has been a refuge for many of us, and it's a really clean, wholesome activity. I see it as like that, and I'm just very grateful to be able to be part of someone else's journey through RPGs. I think.
That's powerful. That's so powerful. That's awesome. I love it. Ariel, your gratitude.
To my cat. Well, I don't know how to say. I always be grateful with everybody that give me the opportunity to be part of his team. And thankful that I am where I am now. I'm grateful for the first opportunity that I had when I started to work in animation until the last one that was Modiphius, and the opportunity to work with Jim and the whole team. Also, grateful for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to find Aurea.
He's just saying that because
Good move.
Yeah. And that's it. And of course, to my fathers that they are not here now, but they believe in me and what I'm doing, and they never ask to do anything different.
Good dad. Yeah.
Great parenting. That's fantastic. Oh, I see. I feel so lifted. This is great. So my gratitude is first and foremost to the both of you for being on the show, but also for all the hard work that you've done over the last several years, and being on the team with me, and being such a what's the right word? Such a stable bedrock, right? Like I never have to worry about the artwork, right? Like I sent you, I work with you on the art briefs. It's like Ariel's got it. I don't have to worry about it. It's all fine. Any details, it'll all get worked out. But it is such a comfort as a project manager and as a teammate to know like you've got your thing, right? I can set you loose and you do the thing, and then it all comes out great. Like every time I get a final piece of art back from you, I'm like, it's like it's either 100% there or it's like 99% there, and we just need to fix a delta or a rank pip or a sleeve braid or something. All that minutia that we have to get into, right? But it has been such a comfort and a joy to work with you for these many years, and it's appalling to me personally that I didn't know more about you, but had to do this interview to learn more. But I'm glad we got a chance to do it, and I'm grateful for Star Trek to bring us together, to give us the opportunity to talk together and to do this kind of thing. And I'm also grateful to just all the artists out there that I've been inspired by my entire life, from cartoons like the Saturday morning cartoons I was watching as a kid, not knowing any better, all the Disney stuff that I learned about, like all those classic artists who had to draw cell after cell after cell and do the individual pieces of art, and all of a sudden it came together, right? So all those artists, comic books, I grew up on comic books as well. I was always inspired by those artists, and that was when I was growing up and learning, I like this artist doing this character more than I like this artist doing this character. And it's like you just learn as you go. And now into the movies, where all the artists are working on movies and animation and illustration and CGI, and there's just so much. And I'm just grateful to all those artists, because I'm not a visual artist, right? I don't have the ability to draw anything beyond stick figures. In fact, I know, Ariel, you've seen my horrible attempts at drawing, but it's enough to get the point across, and then you do way better than that. My cat's here too, but she's not going to be. She's camera shy. Anyway, so grateful to the artists, and in the RPG world, artists are really important, because like a writer can write a setting, and it's so much more effective to be able to show them a piece of art and say, here's my world. Like you can go read the 3,000 words of setting that I wrote, but here's that piece of art, right? I mean, Tolkien is an exception, of course, right? I'm sure, because Tolkien has such beautiful prose and such evocative language. But you put a piece of art by Howe or Lee up there, and you're like, oh, now I get it, right? That's a Balrog. That's a Sauron or whatever. So I really appreciate artists like you who can take the written word like an art brief and translate it into a beautiful piece of art. So I am grateful for all of you, for all the work you do. Please don't ever stop. I want to find ways to get you guys more stuff to do. And now that I've got a better understanding of you, I got the gears turning, Michael. So we need to think about some stuff outside of Modiphius. But anyway, all that being said, thank you, and of course, thank you to the fans for Star Trek and just in general. Without you fans, we wouldn't have done a second edition. We wouldn't be talking here now. Probably, yeah, we'd probably still be talking about the game, but it would feel different, right? So grateful for the fans for being with us for these last 9 years now, and just stay tuned because we have more cool stuff coming. Artwork, writing, books.
Yep, we're gonna have them back. So you all send me your 4 favorite pieces, and then we'll schedule you for another show so we could riff about your artwork. That's gonna be fantastic. All right, thank you so much for coming on. Until next time, everyone. IDIC.
Live long and prosper. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk to you all next time.